even though we knew this was a possibility, even though we knew, like, we saw game one, we saw how Wemby looked at his best. We've seen how various other Spurs, whether it's Stephon Castle, whether it's Dylan Harper, we just saw how these other young Spurs looked in big moments. And time after time after time after time after time, not only did they succeed, but most importantly, they exceeded. This is going to sound like so much hate, and I swear it's not. Warner Brothas Podcast. Welcome back. I am your sometimes host, sometimes co-host, Kyle Warner. Hey, it's the Sunday after a probably and possibly monumental Game 7. Of course, I'm talking about Spurs Thunder. It's the last day of May, by the way. June is right around the corner. We're about 2 hours from June, which is insane to me. We are about 3 days from the NBA Finals. Spurs and Knicks, we're finally here. We are finally here. We made it. I just wanted to give my thoughts quickly on Game 7. What a game it was. It bordered on a classic. At times seemed like it was going to be a classic. And it ended up being a great game. Don't get me wrong. It was one of the better games we've had this postseason. I don't think the series delivered the way it should have with these two. Sometimes this happens with matchups where, the series doesn't back up the matchup. You know what I mean? Because this is a great matchup on paper. Obviously, two of the best teams, if not the top two teams, statistically the top two teams in the regular season anyway, of the Western Conference. I got to be honest, I still, in my heart of hearts, wonder what a fully healthy Denver Nuggets team looks like against either one of these teams. But that's neither here nor there because, hey, it's finals time. And listen, I told you throughout these playoffs, I told you, especially in this series, hey, if Wemby gets through, if Wemby and the Spurs get through to the finals, it just might be the end for all of us. Like, as long as Wemby's here, like, this just must be our new existence. Just might be our new existence, I should say. Right? We could be, if we get 15 more years of Wemby, we could get 8 to 10 more finals appearances. And if we're lucky enough, he shoots 70 or 80% in those wins. If he gets to, right? If he gets to 10, maybe he wins 8, maybe he wins 6. I'm being kind of facetious, but I'm kind of not. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I know Keenan picked the Spurs to make it to the finals and win. And even he was kind of like, he had his reservations about it. He ended up picking them, but even he was like, I can see how insane that would be if the Spurs, in fact, won it all this year. Even though I knew it was a possibility, even though I thought Game 7 would be a close game, and obviously the Spurs have a 50-50 shot at winning that close game, and they could be in the finals. Once it actually happens, you're kind of shocked. I'm kind of shocked anyway. Even though we knew this was a possibility, even though we knew, we saw Game 1, we saw how Wemby looked at his best. We've seen how various other Spurs, whether it's Stephon Castle, whether it's Dylan Harper, we just saw how these other young Spurs looked in big moments. And time after time after time after time after time, not only did they succeed, but most importantly, they exceeded expectations. I cannot get over how mature this Spurs team looks. And, that especially includes last night. And the big thing to me about last night, I would have thought if they win that game, if the Spurs win that game, which they did, but I would have thought it would have been a monster game from Wemby, much like game one, or much like, what was it, game six? Maybe game four? I can't remember. I think it was it was game four where Wemby comes out and kind of dominates the game and puts his imprint on the game. Didn't really have a monster stat line, but you felt his presence, from beginning to end. And last night he was good, but he wasn't great. You obviously felt his presence, but, last night was much more to me about Julian Champagnie, about Dylan Harper, about De'Aaron Fox, about Keldon Johnson, and then obviously Luke Cornett, who honestly might have changed the course of the game with his chase down block, where he turned into prime LeBron James. Unreal turn of events with that block. I mean, it's a 4-point game, or excuse me, it's a 6-point game. Wemby gets taken out right before that. I believe there's a timeout. Wemby gets subbed out. He's got 5 fouls. OKC goes on a mini run. They score. Hartenstein then gets a steal. Again, it's cut to 6. Hartenstein gets a steal. He's going to the rim. He gets a 2-on-1 fast break. He attacks hard. And Luke Cornett honestly comes up with one of the best defensive plays you'll ever see on any level of basketball. I can't say it came out of nowhere. I mean, it kind of did come out of nowhere, but I mean, he had to be put in position to do that play. But I mean, for him to go up, meet Hartenstein, and pin it off the glass at a pivotal point, fresh off the bench, by the way, and then he gets taken out like a minute later. And by the way, Castle makes a jump shot after the block to push it to 8. It was a 4-point swing. That was the biggest play of the game to me. Was the biggest play of the entire game. Even with Keldon Johnson's back-to-back threes, who, he hasn't been shooting the ball well in this series at all. He really hasn't even played well this series. And then all of a sudden he makes 2 of the biggest threes of the game. But that Luke Cornett block was unreal. It was almost like he had an out-of-body experience. I mean, I've watched a good amount of Luke Cornett over the years when he was on the Celtics, and, the more he's become a quality role player. And I quite like Luke Cornett's game, to be honest with you. And you could feel more than ever this series the difference between him and Wemby, right? We got Wemby, who's a fucking alien. Doesn't even look real on the court half the time. And when he gets taken out, you get a quality backup center in Luke Cornett. But it felt like such a drop-off, especially when you got Chet, who we will get to, who obviously had his rough series, but Chet's not playing well. You can go to Isaiah Hartenstein, you can go to Jalen Williams, J. Will. They got options. When you're going from Wemby to Luke Cornett and you really don't have a third center, you got Kelly Olynyk, but they don't really play him. I really thought that could have been what killed the Spurs, was these non-Wemby minutes throughout the series. For Wemby to pick up his 5th foul, I think with about 7 or 8 minutes left in the 4th, they let him play up until that 6-minute mark. And then Cornett literally comes in, makes that one play after the timeout. And then Wemby gets put in. And then for reasons that escape me, Oklahoma City didn't really attack Wemby. He's hard because he's such a smart player. He's not really going to he's not going to pick up a stupid foul. But they also didn't put him in a ton of positions to where he could pick up his 6th foul. And his 5th foul that he picked up could have went either way. I didn't, he tried to block Caruso's dunk. He got him on the arm. They call that sometimes they don't. And they called it. You don't hardly ever get that key of a player, especially one of Wemby's, paint protection stature. You don't ever get 5 fouls on that guy with over half a quarter to go. And they got it. They got a blessing with that, and they really didn't try to attack him. Now, you could say, hey, the guy he's guarding in Chet Holmgren wasn't aggressive at all this series, let alone last night. You didn't even shoot in the second half last night. 2 shots the entire game, 4 points. And you're going to hear a lot of chatter about Chet possibly being moved. What do they do? And, we'll discuss that this week on the WBP. I talked about it the other night, maybe moving J-Dub, moving J-Dub instead of Chet. And Chet goes out there and lays a literal egg in this game. It was unreal. Unreal. I've not seen a player piss down their leg like that in quite a long time. We've seen atrocious stuff from James Harden in closeout games. We obviously have seen LeBron against the Dallas Mavericks melt down and not want the ball and play hot potato with it and have a weird look on his face. Chet literally seemed like he had piss running down his leg. Most of this series, but especially last night. I don't understand why Mark Daigneault didn't pull him earlier. I would have went with Hartenstein and Jalen Williams, who were both outplaying him anyway. I know Hartenstein's a tough matchup when you have him going against Wemby. He's obviously not as quick on his feet as Chet. But Chet was a literal 0 on offense. And it's a game 7. You know what I mean? You don't got time for hurt feelings in a game 7. So I would have pulled Chet a bit earlier. I've made it this far. I've made it over 10 minutes in this podcast, and I haven't even mentioned Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, repeat MVP. I thought he was outstanding last night. I thought the likes between him, Cason Wallace, Jared McCain, those dudes are dogs, man. And Caruso as well. Those 4 last night, all guards, by the way. They kept him right in the game. And SGA literally gave it his all, playing 44 minutes. And you saw him not himself in those last 2 or 3 minutes, which surprised me. This is something I want to talk about when Keenan comes back on Tuesday. I don't know if it seems like, and I don't want to make this today's league versus the past. But it seems like stars of the past could play 44 minutes and not look as winded as SGA did. That probably shocked me almost as much as Luke Cornett's block. That SGA was gassed. He didn't have legs at the end of the game. I think he had a 3 to tie the game with maybe over a minute left. And it was on target, but it was an air ball. You never see SGA air ball. And this wasn't like a deep Steph Curry 3 or, 3-4 feet behind the line. It was a regular 3, kind of fading away. And he just did not have the legs. And you saw him late in the game passing up the ball because he just did not have the legs to even get to the rim. He actually had a shot at Wemby, I think, with under a minute left. He had him one-on-one at the rim, and he passed out of it, which, that happens, 40 times a game with Wemby. But you remember, he's got 5 fouls there. I thought at least SGA maybe tries to get a shot up. He did not. I don't know. There were so many things that you see in these type of games too. In a game 7 where every single decision matters. Every possession matters. That's why, again, the Luke Cornett play just will forever stick out to me. That was the Thunder not only going on a run, but this game was between 6 and 12 points pretty much throughout the first and third quarter. Might have squeaked to 10 here and there, but by and large, the Spurs would get up 8 or 9. Thunder would call a timeout. Spurs have an 11-point lead going into the fourth. Kind of goes back and forth between 11 and 7. Maybe they do. For some reason, 14 sticking out to me. Maybe they did get up 14 at one point. But after the Cornett block, which, as I told you, it goes from a 6-point game to an 8-point game. About 2 minutes after that, the Spurs get up 11 with about 4 to go. And that might have been after the back-to-back Keldon Johnson threes. Um, they had all the momentum there, up 11, 4 minutes to go, season on the line. And the Thunder do charge back. And actually, at that 4-minute mark, this was one of the craziest things I've seen, and it actually almost worked out for them. That was their final timeout that Mark Dagnall used. And I thought he was expertly using his timeouts because every single run the Spurs ever went on to, like, where it seemed like they could crack it open to double digits plus, he was using a timeout. First quarter, second quarter, all the way through. And that's how you burn it there with 4 minutes left. And then so what's interesting about that, he burns it down 11, about 4:26 left. Boom. I think they score out of the timeout. And then the Spurs instantly use their timeout. They're use it or lose it, right? Because it's before the 3-minute mark, before the 2-minute mark. You got to use it or you lose the timeout, right? So you get back-to-back timeouts there if you're the Thunder, which is a gift. And the Spurs still have timeouts left. And there's still stoppages in play. Again, that's kind of why I'm shocked with the SGA fatigue at the end of the game. Which, by the way, I'm seeing a bunch of, oh, wow, this is what SGA looks like when he doesn't flop. I saw a lot of that last night where people were like, oh, this is why he pisses us off, because he doesn't have to do all this and he chooses to. And I do understand that. I completely understand that. I've been a little, more easy on SGA when it comes to the foul baiting because, every scorer who has ever lived or existed in this NBA, I mean, come on, about 98% of them hunt for fouls. Whether they act as egregiously or fall as much as SGA does, that's a different story. But do they foul bait? Do they foul hunt? Do they try to get to the line? Yeah, that's a tale as old as time in the association. You name a player: Dwayne Wade, Kobe Bryant, Allen Iverson, Paul Pierce, Melo, Durant, LeBron, Dirk. Name a scorer. Name a guy who's got the ball in his hands, 40 possessions a game. Right? Like, you're going to look for James Harden, obviously, who's the most egregious. You're going to look for ways to get more points, to get easy points, and you're getting the other team in foul trouble. It's a great strategy. It's a skill to some degree. As much as I hate to say it, it is a skill. And unfortunately, the most unfortunate part about all this, and this is what gets me, especially in the regular season, it's a skill that the refs continue to reward. And the refs, like, if you ever stumble upon, or you go on YouTube and just look up, like, I don't know, if you looked up life of an NBA ref or whatever, like, it would probably say, like, I've seen this on refs when they've done, like, a clip on them on a pregame show or something like that. Like, they'll tell you they watch film or they'll watch highlights of the first half at halftime, or post game they're watching film, or on their off days they're watching film. Much like a player would, much like a coach would. And yet still they're duped by these moves that SGA does, or like James Harden in his prime did. You're still getting duped by this stuff. That, like, if you're just watching it like me and everyone else, and you got duped repeatedly every game, fine. But if you're watching game film and you can see where you're getting duped, where the foul baiting, where the flopping, where all that is, what repeat offenders are doing this, right? If you've got that much intel and that much data and that much film to your disposal, and it's your job to do that, I don't understand how they keep getting away with it. Not only that, you can see year after year after year after year the difference in officiating between the regular season and the postseason. And part of that is obviously the best refs are in the postseason. But still, there shouldn't be that much of a difference to where we can immediately tell round one, game one, compared to, game 78, game 62, game 5 of the regular season. The fact that we can tell immediately, like within the first 3 minutes, oh, this is a huge difference in officiating. Oh, physicality is allowed. Oh, we're not going to reward flopping as much. That type of shit annoys me with the association, with Adam Silver's league, with the regular season in particular, right? I mean, there's just so many differences between the regular and postseason when it comes to the NBA. But that one probably gets me the most, the difference in officiating. Keenan and I will be recording on Tuesday. I will be doing Is the Hype Real on Wednesday. And I'm a keep it a buck with everybody. Your boy is a little tired from the weekend right now. I wanted to get my thoughts out there, but maybe this will play better to y'all. But to me, I sound like I'm rambling to myself. So I don't really love how this podcast is going. Maybe it sounds cool to y'all, and I hope it sounds cool to y'all, but I feel like I feel like this podcast is not going how I envisioned in my head, right? That being said, I'm going to give y'all some more thoughts. Then I'm going to get out of here. Okay. And then I think Keenan and I will get more in depth on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday pregame before the NBA Finals. So again, let me just shout out on the Thunder side of things. Once again, SGA, phenomenal, man. I mean, it very much reminded me, and if you're a follower of this podcast or if you've been listening for a while, you would hear me say like when I went fully in on SGA, like when I really became a fan of him, and I've liked him since his days of Kentucky. But when I was like, yo, this guy really might be the A1 one-on-one scorer in the league. And I think it's an argument between him and Luka. But I think it was the semifinal. Was it the quarterfinal or the semifinal? Can't remember. It was either the quarterfinal or the semifinal of the 2024 Olympics, Canada versus France. I think it was a semifinal. Yeah, semifinals, same day USA played Serbia. Anyway, man, yo, this whole series has been physical. The playoffs get physical. I think France, Canada, that was damn near a football game. And if you remember, the Olympics were in France. The refs were letting France get away with murder, which they did in the final two. The French got away with a lot versus our USA team. But against Canada, especially, that was a football game. Jamal Murray had an awful game, and SGA was really out there by himself against France playing football. And oh, by the way, Wemby and Gobert protecting the rim. And this dude, like in the midst of one of the most physical games I've ever seen, was as calm, cool, and collected as could be. And like in the middle of chaos, just like getting buckets that you needed, right? A mid-range jump shot to tie the game. A do or die three to like, dribbling up the court, no passes. I'm going to go get a three just one-on-one, to cut this 5-point lead to 2. And we absolutely need this bucket to stay in the game type shot. Like, and that's the type of stuff SGA was doing last night. You know, and I'm sitting here saying how I can't believe he was fatigued, but, it's not like he had really a second option. Obviously no J-Dub, obviously no AJ Mitchell, which makes you wonder, and I discussed this last podcast too. I wonder if the Knicks in their heart of hearts wanted the Thunder with how unhealthy they were, or how unhealthy they would have been going into that NBA Finals had they won last night. Because J-Dub just would not have been reliable. He hasn't been able to play 3 straight games, it seems like, all season. AJ Mitchell, obviously, he had a hamstring injury as well. Like, who knows when he would have been back? And who knows if he would have been 100%. So you have that last night. I mean, that's the one reason last night where you're looking at you're looking at the Spurs and saying, hey, regardless of age, who has the most creators on this floor? And they finally, for giving the Spurs props, which, by the way, again, let me shout out once again for the Thunder. Casey Wallace, Jared McCain. Yo, I would not let them go for anything, especially Casey Wallace, who's up for contract this year. Would not let him go for anything. He is, I believe he was all defense second team this year. Like, he is one of the premier backcourt defender. Casey Wallace just seems indispensable to me. When you have that level of defense and that level of just He's got a knack for, I don't want to say a knack for the big moment. That's corny. But, I mean, he definitely rises to the occasion. He's rose to the occasion all year because they were, without J-Dub all year. And we've seen that from A.J. Mitchell as well when he's been available. But, man, Casey Wallace, like, he's someone, if Caruso were to move on or, they traded Caruso or whatever, Caruso weren't able to be on the team, Casey Wallace would fit into that spot and then some. And of course, he's super young. He's got room to grow. he could very well just be a starting point guard on someone else's team, or, play what's my man's name? Davion Mitchell. He could play the Davion Mitchell role for a team. Start, kind of be a combo guard, kind of play the two, kind of play the one. You know what I mean? Like, that's basically what he's doing for the Thunder right now when they have these injuries. And I don't know, man. I wouldn't move on from him for anything. And again, McCain, I thought they should have played McCain more last night. He showed up huge in this series. I mean, again, the fact that Philly just gave him up for second round picks, I would be beside myself if I was a Sixers fan. It was mind boggling when it happened. But when you see it play out this entire playoffs, where he's just spotting up, hitting timely threes, playing good defense, at times getting his own shot and looking completely comfortable. Because, I mean, he's only a sophomore player. We're talking about someone who's, 20, 21, 22, and looked completely comfortable last night. Looked completely comfortable this entire postseason. Again, compare that to Chet, right? But you will often see in these game sevens that you'll have four players show up and then a fifth that's kind of there, a fifth that's serviceable. And that's about what happened last night for the Thunder. Hartenstein played okay. SGA, Casey Wallace, McCain, as I said. Jalen Williams played well for them last night. So that was your 4.5, 5 that actually showed up for the Thunder. Spurs had 7 guys give them legit minutes. 8 if you want to count Luke Cornett with his, again, out-of-body 2016 LeBron in the finals type block. But again, man, wise beyond their years. Wise beyond their years. I can't believe it. De'Aaron Fox, who had really an unremarkable series going into this game 7. And of course, he had a high ankle sprain. He's been battling that since game 6 of last series against the Timberwolves. Looked himself last night. And not only looked himself, looked completely comfortable. Looked honestly like one of the more comfortable players on the entire court. And his numbers from last night won't wow you. But he stuck out to me, especially in the second half, with how he was conducting himself in the game, how he was managing the floor as a point guard. They needed, I mean, it was only 15 points, but they needed every bit of those 15 from him. Dylan Harper, Stephon Castle, Champagnie with his 6 threes. I mean, Dylan Harper, he had 12 points, and Keldon Johnson, he had 11 points. They were allowed 12 and 11. I mean, if off the top of my head, I would have thought Harper had 18 and Keldon had about 15. You get 12 and 11 from them. You get 15 from Fox, as I said. Castle had 16. Vassell had 11. He didn't have to play. He didn't even play down the stretch. And then Wemby, again, Champagnie has that 20. But Wemby, 22, 7, 2, and 1 block. If you would have told me he had that stat line prior to game 7, I would have told you that the Spurs probably lose by 8. And they win by 8. It was really a 6-point game. They get that dunk at the end, as time's running out. So it's really a 2-possession win. But man, I would have thought the Spurs would not have come out victorious. It's not a bad game from Wemby, but it's not, it's about an average game. 22, 7, and 1 block especially. Not really protecting the rim. And 5 fouls on top of that. Yeah, I would have definitely thought the Spurs lost. And they come out victorious. And they do it in a team effort, which is what you'd see from a team that's, even more of a vet team than the Thunder. That's something you'd see out of a team that's had 5 or 6 playoff runs. A team like the Celtics, maybe, who've been there before. The Knicks, who have had a few playoff runs in their belts. So it'll be interesting to see, man. Can they keep it up? Can they keep looking wise beyond their years? Are they so young that it doesn't even matter? Like nothing affects them because they're just out there playing. The moment doesn't affect them. What round they're in doesn't affect them. You see that sometimes in football, right? In these one game situations. You see this sometimes in baseball where a team gets hot and maybe they're not the most talented team, but they can kind of ride the wave into the postseason. Spurs were just outrageously hot down the stretch of the regular season into the postseason. They I think they, more than any other team in the East or West, were consistently winning against contenders, with or without Wemby, by the way. And me, along with probably a lot of other people, I want to say overlooked it. I mean, I definitely discounted them for their age, for sure. I thought, hey, yeah, eventually they're going to get tripped up by whether it's the Nuggets, maybe it's the Timberwolves, maybe it's the Thunder. But I thought, yeah, they're going to have one moment where they look young. And it's really been that. It's been a couple moments, a couple games here and there where they look young. And hey, you got 7 more games to do that. I mentioned the other day, I don't think anybody should be taking the Knicks lightly in this series. This isn't Colts Patriots 2006 AFC Championship game with the right to face, the Rex Grossman led Chicago Bears. This ain't that by any means. So I'm expecting for sure a 6-game series, hoping for a 7-game series. I cannot wait. This has been. I'm as excited for this finals as I've been for any finals. Truly, I think it's going to be fantastic. I think it's going to be a home run of a series for the NBA. I think it's going to be a home run of a series for NBA fans. I think we're going to get outstanding basketball. I think we're going to get at least 2 classic games. This is a great matchup. This is a very likable, not only likable Knicks team, but a well-coached Knicks team. Uh, just a fun team to watch, a fun Knicks team. I'm sorry, this melatonin's hitting me, so I'm just like, again, I don't even think this podcast is great, but I hope y'all enjoy it. But no, this Knicks team, they were very Brunson centric, and as we know, I've told you, they've opened up the offense a little bit. But I feel like even with that, I feel like this team's a little more versatile than what they show. I feel like with the level of wings they have, with OG, with Mikal Bridges, with Josh Hart, Brunson, who doesn't mind playing off ball, clearly, in Towns, who's become like mini Jokic all of a sudden, and who I've said in the past, like his rebounds just been severely underrated. He's not afraid to get like tough and gritty with the rebounds. He's not afraid to get his hands dirty. Like you wouldn't think of Towns as a true big like that, or like a tough big like that, but he really does. He's one of the better rebounders in the league. And you combine that with how he can stretch the floor, that could and should be a factor against Wemby. Being able to pull him away from this basket, on when they're on defense. We'll see. Again, we'll get more to the matchups and all that on Tuesday with Keenan. But I can't wait to see. I think the Knicks are more than a formidable opponent. I don't have a pick for you yet. Again, I'll have that Tuesday. I just can't wait. I cannot wait to see what the Spurs team looks like. And this is going to be 8 straight years of a new champion in the NBA, which is what Adam Silver wants. He wants to be more like the NFL, which is great. Like, I completely get it. The NBA kind of needs the parity to some degree in a league that's been run by dynasties, especially in its modern era, especially from like Bird and Magic on. Even before that, obviously, with the Celtics. But, in the modern era, it's been, I don't want to say reliant on dynasties, but like that's That's largely what's transpired in the league, is if not even dynasties, familiar teams, right? The Spurs had their run. I don't know if you want to call the Spurs a dynasty. I understand if you do, I understand if you don't, but it's still a familiar team that's there every year, right? In the early 2000s and into the 2010s. So, I mean, but you go through this decade, you've got the Lakers and Heat at the NBA AAU Invitational. You've got, this is the weirdest one to me and the weirdest NBA season we'll ever look back on, 2021. Because remember, you have like a 6-week off season between the bubble and the 21 season starting. We get Suns and Bucks, which was like, again, 20 and 21 all feels like a fever dream to me to begin with. And that one especially feels weird because I think we had some fans, not all, if I remember correctly. Like it was like half capacity fans. I don't even remember. But, you had Chris Paul versus Giannis. Suns go up 2-0. Seems like Chris Paul's going to get his first ring, and then Giannis does his thing, gets injured in the middle of it too, and still pulls out that 50 piece. I feel like we don't talk about Giannis scoring 50 in an elimination game nearly enough. Nearly enough. I feel like we breeze past it. Even if that is one of the weirder finals we've ever had, I feel like we just breeze past that. I feel like it's not brought up nearly enough. And then 22, that's Celtics Warriors. Pretty good finals. 23, we get Nuggets Heat. Not that great of a finals. Then 24, Celtics Mavericks. Not that great of a finals. And then last year, we probably get our best finals since 2016. I'd say maybe 2019, however you feel about that. That was a good finals, but not great. And I'll even throw 2021 in there. That was an entertaining finals for what it was. Again, it ends on that Giannis 50 piece. But for sure, I mean, last year was like a classic finals. You had that game one with the game winner. You had the dramatics in game 7 and everything else in between. Really only game 1 and game 7 stick out to me right now. I'd have to go back and look. But, I say that to say it's been a really weird decade so far. And for us to land here, where it's either going to be the Knicks victorious, which would be a home run for the NBA, or you get what's possibly the next dynasty, for sure your next superstar. And again, this is why I think the face of the league shit was so dumb, because it's like, all right, there's no debate about it. You're not selected. No one selected LeBron to be the face of the league. We knew it was going to be LeBron. It was preordained. That's why he's the chosen one. Wemby, that's why he's an alien. It so obviously was always going to be Wemby as the next face of the league. The only reason the only reason we say, hey, Curry might be like the co-face of the league is because he's unlike anything we've ever seen. And his play dictated that. And his play was so popular and so out of this world, and his shooting was so out of this world. He willed himself into that conversation. And it wasn't even a conversation. No one talked about that. We eventually were like, hey, yeah, Steph is pretty damn near close to being on LeBron's level, star-wise, popularity-wise, draw-wise. And that's going to be Wemby. Wemby's already a draw. You want to talk about, casual fans who pull up for the NBA Finals. Imagine all the casual Knicks fans you're just going to have in the tri-state area now who are watching. On top of all the casual fans who want to see this 8-foot alien who can shoot threes and handle and block shots and plays offense like he's on a Nerf hoop. Yeah, no, this is the NBA's fucking dream right here. Like, you know what I mean? Like outside of Lakers, Celtics, or, you name a marquee franchise. Yeah, they want the Knicks back. They got them back. And you want who's going to be, maybe as soon as next year, the face of the league, and Victor Wembanyama there. And we're either going to get something that defines the early part of Wemby's career in a loss, and then the parade of all parades for the New York Knicks. Or, again, you're going to get a Wemby win and a Spurs win and possibly the start of the next dynasty. And Lord help us all if that happens, because I'll keep saying it and I'll keep saying it. It just might be over for us if that happens. Listen, I'm done rambling. This melatonin's hitting me. I don't even know what we should call this podcast. This might be the I Just Rambled podcast, because it to me it didn't sound coherent, but I hope it sounded coherent to y'all. Warner Brothas Podcast. We'll be back Tuesday. Keep communicating with us. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Music. Keep streaming, keep watching, keep listening. We'll be back. Peace.